Welcome back and thanks for being with us here at Live Now from Fox on this Sunday, September 14th. I'm your host, Carel, Lajara. I want to take us out to this image that we are getting over in Jerusalem. I'm not entirely sure if this could be some tape playback, which is what we call, or if this is live. But you can see here, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he is there meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as that war in Gaza does escalate. And I am getting word from my producer here that this is live at the moment, but it's very similar to what we saw earlier today. And also, you may remember that at the top of the hour, I did bring you some of the remarks that Secretary Rubio had to say yesterday at Joint Base Andrews as he was heading to Israel today. Going back to some of this reporting from the Associated Press, they're saying that Secretary of State Rubio arriving in Israel today as Israel intensified its attacks against northern Gaza, flattening another high-rise building and killing at least 12 Palestinians. Rubio had said, oh, excuse me, I am getting word once again here that this is actually tape playback, so it's not live at this moment. So it is possible that this is kind of the same feed that we brought you earlier today, but we are keeping an eye out on all of these cameras because, as I've said, Rubio did say ahead of this trip that he's going to be seeking answers from Israeli officials about how they see the way forward in Gaza following Israel's attack on Hamas operatives in Qatar last week that did upend those efforts to broker an end to the conflict. If we get some more footage, any live or more playback yesterday of some different vantage points, we'll bring them to you here. We'll also keep you up to date on anything coming out from this meeting there. Again, featuring Secretary of State Marco Rubio there in the middle. To the right of him, on the far right side, you do see the U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, and then to the left, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. I want to bring it back to some more of the top stories from earlier this week, though, taking a look here at some footage of conservative political activist Charlie Kirk, because one of the major storylines was the assassination that happened to Charlie Kirk at a Utah campus on Wednesday. That suspected shooter has been stopped. He is in custody at the moment. There's a lot of questions going forward, but before we do a deep dive on all of this, I want to get to some of the reaction that we're getting from around the globe, courtesy of this report from Fox News correspondent Stephanie Bennett.
Political stance. People from across the world have expressed shock, anger, and outrage at such grisly violence. Charlie Kirk had a massive following abroad. This year, he spoke in the UK, Japan, and South Korea. His Turning Point USA has international offshoots, too. Politicians across the spectrum denounced the killing. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer called it heartbreaking that a young family has been robbed of a father and a husband. Adding on X, we must all be free to debate openly and freely without fear. There could be no justification for political violence. Friday, Londoners gathered to pay their respects, dropping off flowers, lighting candles, holding American flags, and singing Amazing Grace. And other memorials have been popping up from Australia to Berlin to Africa.
It shouldn't be that we should live in a world where, just for having an opinion, you should be killed.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he spoke to Kirk only 2 weeks ago with an invitation to visit Israel. He wrote on X that Kirk was murdered for speaking the truth and defending freedom, saying we lost an incredible human being. His boundless pride in America and his valiant belief in free speech will leave a lasting impact. Italy's prime minister called it an atrocious murder, a deep wound for democracy and for those who believe in freedom. Speaking today, she said that the climate here in Italy, too, is becoming unsustainable due to political hatred.
Hate and political violence are dramatically returning as a reality, causing many issues to come to a head.
For now, more events and vigils are expected throughout the weekend. In London, Stephanie Bennett, Fox News.
Thank you to Stephanie Bennett there for that report. And for now, the focus does continue to be what comes next after that assassination. I want to bring us out to some of the footage that we had from earlier this week, where you can see so many of the people that attended this event at the Utah College campus really scattering there as soon as those shots rang out. Authorities are still trying to learn more about what motivated this fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk. Tyler James Robinson, 22 years old, of Washington, Utah, he was arrested on suspicion of aggravated murder and other felony offenses. Prosecutors are drawing up charges that could be filed early next week when he will make his first court appearance. So let's dive deeper into this entire situation. I'd like to bring into the program now Andrea Lewis. She is a former federal prosecutor. Andrea, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
So let's just start with, what are prosecutors thinking at the moment when you have such a high-profile assassination of a political activist that is really prominent around the world? As you can see, what's going through their minds?
Well, look, there's a lot to take in. And so the first steps in any investigation, especially one with the magnitude that this one has, is going to be collecting the evidence. They have to analyze it to determine a motive. They obviously have a pretty good idea of what was going on in this guy's head, but they need to fine tune that. And so keep in mind, you just saw thousands of people who were there and witnessed this. Those people, what they saw, what they heard that day, they're witnesses. They need to dig into that and get that information, along with capturing video footage, along with looking at his online fingerprint. We've already heard there was a lot of chatter online from him talking to other people both before and after this. So they're going to have to analyze all that. Speaking to the roommates, we've heard an awful lot about them. So there's going to be a lot that they need to take in, analyze, and then determine what the appropriate charges will be.
Just showcasing here some of the photos that we had from surveillance footage there on the scene. It's what the FBI first released in order to be able to capture this suspect. Andre, I want to go back to a point that you made here when it comes to a motive. As we also take this live look out in Phoenix, Arizona, that is where a Turning Point USA headquarters is located. But Andrea, how important is it to find a motive when prosecuting this case, and how does that affect the punishment overall?
Well, that's a great question. And so motive, sometimes you have strong evidence of it and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just know the person did it and we'll never know why, but they did. Here, I don't think that's going to be the case. This guy has so many communications with others. We know he had sort of a hatred, based on what we've heard so far, for Charlie Kirk and maybe some of his views. And so the motive is really taking shape. Now, why is that important? Well, number one, when this case is going to be presented to a jury, it helps juries, as it would anyone, to be able to tell the full story so they can see, make sense of this, and understand exactly why this person did what he did. And also, were others involved? I don't think we really know that yet. And I know that authorities are really doing a deep dive into that. That's important. Is this a conspiracy? Will those type of charges be brought? But to your point, motive often goes to whether there will be aggravating factors. So will it be charged as a hate crime? Is this going to be obviously at this point, it looks like this is politically motivated. So those types of things will ultimately play into what formal charges are brought against him when authorities formally charge him, which I believe they're aiming for next week to do that.
Speaking on who else could get dragged into this entire situation, I want to put up this post on X. This was posted just yesterday from Fox News Digital's Brooke Singman, saying, exclusive, Charlie Kirk assassin Tyler Robinson lived with his transgender partner, sources tell me. The individual, who is a male transitioning to a female, is fully cooperating with the FBI. But I want to tackle with this question. Andrew, talk to us about the process when it comes to picking some of these witnesses, how prosecutors determine who they should talk to, who would be credible, and what are some of the questions that are being asked at this time?
Sure. Well, of course, they're going to start with the people closest to the suspect, right? So we have the roommate, which we've heard an awful lot about. As I understand from the reporting that I've heard so far, the suspect was communicating with this person and providing what it sounds like to be critical details about the weapon, where it is, that there was a drop point, things of that nature. So that person is obviously going to be a very critical witness in this case, and we'll have to ultimately determine what they knew and when they knew it. But it does sound like they're cooperating. We know that the the accused killer's father was brought into this, from what we're hearing so far, right after the fact, and ultimately it seems like played a role in having him turned in. So what did he tell his father at that time? And I know that there was another person, from what I'm hearing, the reporting so far, that may have been involved with the him ultimately turning himself in. So what did they know? And then, of course, they're going to look at the close friend group, things of that nature. Anybody else that he was discussing with this, either online, through chat messages, things like that. And so anybody in this person's orbit who may have known what was going on before it unfolded or after, those are all going to be very important witnesses in this case.
Andrea, I know that you were a former federal prosecutor, but I want to talk a little bit about the defense right now in that perspective. I mean, a suspect has been caught, but they're innocent until proven guilty. This suspect's photo, though, plastered all over the internet. His name is out there. People are really digging up everything about his past, who he knows, what he's like. From a defense's perspective, how challenging is this to make sure that this person gets a fair trial?
Well, any type of high-profile case like this, it is extremely challenging. I mean, you have somebody, as you mentioned, his face is plastered all over everything. People are talking about this at their work and at social gatherings, and this is really a topic of conversation, not only across the United States, but in other parts of the world as well. So he is highly recognizable, and certainly that there's going to be a lot of issues that are going to come up during this trial to make sure he can get a fair trial, which of course is the foundation of our justice system here in America. But to your point, there's a lot of things that the jury in this, or the judge in this case, and of course the prosecution team and the defense can do and request to ensure that happens, such as they may move the trial, if necessary, out of where this occurred, so that they can try to lessen the publicity. They, of course, are going to go through a rigorous jury selection where they try to weed out anybody that could not be fair because of things that they've heard or family members have heard, or if they already have made a decision. So there are a lot of things that they can do, but you are 100% right, and it's going to be very challenging to do that considering the high-profile nature of the case.
And then, Andrea, this did just happen. It was just a few days ago. It hasn't even been a week. Already, we're looking ahead to some of these charges that may be filed, federal charges coming up this next week. But when it comes to seeing a potential trial date, I mean, how long does that really take?
In a case like this, it could take quite a while. Now, how long exactly is going to depend on the judge. There are certain factors in terms of a defense strategy. Some defense attorneys feel like it's in their client's best interest to rush the case to trial as quickly as possible to try to prevent the prosecution from building, even an even bigger case. In a circumstance like this, though, I think that there's a lot of heavy lifting that needs to be done on both sides. I anticipate this is going to be top priority for all of the attorneys involved, and that they're going to try to get this case to trial as quickly as possible. Hopefully within the next year or two, I would hope.
Well, Andrea, we certainly appreciate your expertise here. Is there anything you feel like you should add that maybe we didn't touch on? I mean, I know we can talk about so much when it comes to this particular case, but what do you think is really important for people to keep in mind as we move forward?
Well, one thing I would point out that's a bit unusual about this is the cooperation that we saw instantly across law enforcement agencies, and to a large degree, the unification not only of the law enforcement involved, but of many people in the political sphere. You see a lot of people, no matter which side of the aisle that they're on, coming out to talk about how heinous this crime is, and that violence is never the answer, and being really very supportive of the people who loved and cared very much about Charlie Kirk. And, I think that's the silver lining here, is that there still are a lot of people who are very much willing, even in the day and age that we live in, to put all of that aside, any of their personal beliefs aside, and call this out for what it is, which was just an atrocious crime.
Andrea Lewis, a former federal prosecutor, this is only the beginning when it comes to this case, so we do look forward to checking in with you soon. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I want to take us out to some more of this footage that we are just getting into our newsroom. So take a look at this. More security footage is being released as authorities still here trying to piece together everything that went down with that assassination of conservative political activist Charlie Kirk. So here is door security camera footage at the home of the suspect in Orem, Utah. Excuse me, this is at the home of Orem, Utah resident Jessica Packard. Now, she captured video of a gray Dodge Challenger driving past her house around 8:23 a.m. local time in the early morning hours of that Wednesday shooting. Police say they believe suspected shooter Tyler Robinson drove the same Dodge Challenger to Utah Valley University. Then at about 9:57 local time, the same door cam captures what appears to be 22-year-old Tyler Robinson walking past the house again more than an hour later. Following the shooting, law enforcement descended on the neighborhood, searching yards and taking security footage. Robinson was arrested again on suspicion of aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm, causing serious bodily harm, and obstruction of justice. All of them are felonies, and he is being held in a local jail without bail. At the same time, we are seeing people across the country mourning the death of Charlie Kirk. I want to take us out over to Arizona. We do have this live image at a State Farm Stadium over in Glendale, Arizona. That is where we're going to be seeing one of several memorials and services that are held in Charlie Kirk's honor. And I want to bring us out to some more of the timeline that we have for that. Now, the service plan for Charlie Kirk happening next Sunday, September 21st, 2 p.m. Eastern time, 11 in the morning, local time there in Arizona at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. And bringing us out to this, a post on X from Fox News saying Turning Point USA announces massive public memorial service for Charlie Kirk at Arizona Football Stadium.